Welcome to the latest episode of Mayor Brown's Quick Insights on Congressional Investigations with Michael Levy and Andrew Olmem, our weekly 5-minute perspectives for in-house counsel and government affairs executives on the most important and challenging issues surrounding congressional investigations. I'm Michael Levy, a white-collar defense lawyer at Mayor Brown. My partner, Andrew Olmem, is a former Republican chief counsel on the Senate Banking Committee. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the least understood parts of congressional investigations, the role that staffers play. For most of the public, staffers are the anonymous folks sitting behind the members of the committee at a hearing, or occasionally whispering something in their ear, or occasionally being whispered to and rushing off somewhere. In reality, staffers play a very important role in the functioning of Congress generally, and in congressional investigations specifically. Andrew, you have an incredibly valuable perspective on this, having served as a congressional staffer for many years. How would you describe the role of staffers in congressional investigations?
Yeah. Well, the primary role of the staff, Michael, is to do the day-to-day work. They're the workhorses in Congress. They're responsible for conducting the investigation, doing the initial research, all the way to preparing for a congressional hearing if one occurs from the investigation. Staff dominate the congressional investigation to such extent that the vast majority of the time, the only contact an outside party really would ever have with a member of Congress would be if there is actually a hearing. Other than that, there's no expectation. You should have no expectation that you'd ever come into contact with the member. It would be all staff led. Now that's important. It's important to note, however, though, that even though staff are kind of driving the day-to-day work, it's not to say that members are merely delegating to their staff and aren't interested or are not involved in what happens with the investigations. My experience is very much the contrary. I can assure you that during my time on the Hill, members of Congress were very involved, and they were very much directing and very aware of everything that happens in the congressional investigation. Most of the time, what happens is members, through regular meetings with their staff, direct the investigation. They know what parties are being spoken to, what direction it's heading, what evidence they've acquired, so that staff know exactly kind of what their marching orders are and direction that they should go with the congressional investigation and how to handle potential witnesses. This division of labor is really important because members of Congress have so many demands on their times that they would not be able to really do any investigations if they actually had to do it themselves, right? So like any executive for any business or organization, they have to delegate to trusted lieutenants who go about doing the actual day-to-day work, but clearly subject to their supervision. Now, this relationship, division of labor between staff and members, it's important. It leads to a couple points that I think are worth remembering when you deal with staff. The first is that if you do get a call from a staffer, you should never say that you're only going to deal directly with the member of Congress and their boss. First, it's just not realistic, as we just explained. Members are not going to want to talk to you directly about this. They'll say, talk to my staff. Two, you're also going to be starting off the relationship with the staffer on very much the wrong foot. And that's a really big problem because usually the staffs are the ones you want to be able to talk to because they're the ones, as we explained here, have the most information about the investigation. And they're the ones you can go to correct any, for example, misconceptions about the subject matter of the investigation. For example, to say, actually, I wasn't involved, or my involvement was very minor, or was different than what you think it is, or what press reports are. That can be really important, particularly at the beginning of an investigation, for shaping where that investigation, making sure they've got accurate information. So you want to start off that relationship really from a professional standpoint, respecting the role that the staffer is performing there, and the fact that they've got a job to do. Now, this leads me to another point, is that it's really important to always remember that the staffer there is doing what their boss wants. So when you respond to staff, it's always good to think about what their member is interested in, so that you can help, to the extent you can, help that staffer do their job to make their boss happy, and that usually leads to a good outcome. So to the extent you can be helpful to them in satisfying the requests of their bosses, you're more likely to get to a good outcome. This leads me kind of to the final point, which is the importance of really establishing a good professional rapport with committee staff. Usually committee staff who conduct investigations are very experienced, oftentimes have been on the Hill for many years, and they're there, trying to do their job. If you approach them in the same professional manner that you would do in any other kind of business environment, and not necessarily inject politics or just assume because it's on Capitol Hill that it has to be an antagonistic relationship, you're more likely to, again, develop a rapport that will lead to good outcomes for both you and that staffer, and that's a good outcome.
Absolutely. And the reality is, in most cases, you do want to engage. You do want to try to shape the investigation. You want to shape the document production. You want to shape all those things. And realistically, your opportunity to do that is with the staff. And if you're going to do that with the staff, you have to treat them with respect and professionalism and focus in on what can help them do their job effectively while also benefiting your client, which is something that we've talked about on other episodes. So thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Quick Insights on Congressional Investigations. And we hope to see you next week.